Hey, Stacy, it's so good to be here today. I'm excited to be here again.
Yes, yes, yes. Love our conversations. Can't wait to
A-
see where we're going to go today.
Absolutely. As we always do, we check in for a few minutes before we come in, obviously, but we never have anything like really truly planned where this is going to go. But we were chatting a little bit about soul contracts, and I thought, I think that's a great place to kind of start today. I don't know where we might end up, but
Mm.
really love the concept of soul contracts. And, I have a lot of experience with my own spirit guide. Haven't really talked a lot about Esmeralda, but my main spirit guide's name is Esmeralda. She is kind of a funny little gal, but, just her teachings that she has downloaded me with for a very long time. The first time she kind of showed up for me, I was about 4 years old. So, but I'm excited to kind of see where this goes and have some conversations about soul contracts and what those are, what they mean, and see where we go with this conversation.
Yes, so cool. And how we found ourselves a little bit for the audience is sort of a little bit of context or background is that there's a bigger picture at play in this human experience we're having. And we all can have different beliefs, perceptions, or even knowings about this. But what I can say in my personal experience, and I've seen this when I've been in conversation with other people about, like, it's kind of like, who am I? What does all this mean? Why am I here? Natural questions that some of us who begin to look deeper bring us into an expanded level of awareness that there's some version of so much more going on than, and these are my words for me, then I'm a small human, small just meaning I need to do this, this, and this to be achieving, to be accomplishing, to be considered good enough according to whatever the outside world that I'm growing up in or living in. And then, I can say, when you get through so many years of your life, and if you get into adulthood, you're like, I've done all the things. Why am I still feeling this like sense of unfulfillment or something? And I think that seems to be more common than ever. And when, and this will bridge right into the more specifics that I'll turn over to you with soul contracts, is if people would like to just even in this moment be like, okay, not to go delving right now as they're listening, because they're probably wanting to tune into this right now. But if you have ever thought, who am I? What am I? What is all this about? How do we come to be here? And why? That we could open up our hearts, because our mind, some of what you share as with anybody could really go beyond the confines of our logical mind. So I'm just going to say that to people. It's okay. It's okay if you decide that you just disagree. We're not here to get you to agree. That's not at all what's happening. But I know I can say this, Terry and I have experienced so many beautiful, lovely things through this expansion. Our awareness, you might hear the term awakening, just waking up to all that we truly are. And it will be different for each one of us. But every time someone shares their experiences, for me, over the years, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get this like, yes, oh, yes, 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 yes. Like it just feels right. Even though my mind, and some people might be really turned off, and some might be, oh my gosh, tell me more. So wherever you're at, be wherever you're at. It's beautiful. And I will just turn it over to Terry. Can't wait to just be here with
Thanks.
you, Terry. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Stacy. Yeah, absolutely. We are where we are at any given moment. We're ready for some things, we're not ready for others, and that's okay. For me, in the concept of a soul contract, I was very, very young. I was probably about 11 or 12 when Esmeralda, my spirit guide, started talking to me about soul contracts. And when she came to me and she started talking to me about this soul contract, that we wrote these contracts before we ever came into this human form, when we were deciding to come into this human form. And this contract essentially, uh, choosing who we were going to have in our life, who were going to be our parents, who we were going to have significant relationships with, the significant things that were going to happen, those milestone kind of things, and even like choosing some exit points. And I'm going to explain that, but I want to kind of finish the other piece first. But as she's telling me this, definitely not a secret to my friends and people who know me really well, that I was sexually abused as a child for 6 years of my childhood. So as she's bringing this to me at 12 years old, I did not want to hear her at all. I didn't want to hear this, that I could have written something that would have allowed something like that to happen to me. The concept that something so horrid that happened, um, that I would have chosen that was made me so angry. I mean, it just made me angry. And it made me angry at her. I mean, like, how dare you? How dare you even insinuate that I would have personally chosen to have this happen to me? And so, I spent probably the next, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 years, like saying, don't even talk to me about this. This is not okay. This is not an okay place to be. But after that, I really started listening again and started saying, tell me a little bit more about this. And what I began to realize was that if I had not experienced that, if I had not gone through that, then I wouldn't have been where I was. I wouldn't have been the human that I was. I wouldn't have had the compassion, the love, the heart, the just the desire in which to help other people. And likely in the scenario that I was growing up in, I really wouldn't have understood, um, what other people could and were experiencing. And in my career, in my lifelong journey, aside from spiritual practices, a lot of it has surrounded really helping other people with trauma and with situations, such as sexual abuse, but other traumas too. And I don't think that I could have ever really understood or been effective in that had I not gone through that. And so I began to understand why I might have written this into my story. And that's not to minimize anybody's trauma. It's not to make you jump on board and understand this concept. It's just a place to start. It's a place to start and to start understanding, that there is power when we begin to shift to understand that we had some choice in where we are and in some of the relationships that we chose. Now, on the flip side of that, yes, we have this contract, but we also have free will. So, writing this contract, there's still like a right and a left and a straight and a backwards that we can choose in free will. So everything that we write doesn't mean it comes to fruition, right? Like, we can go right when we could have gone left, or we can go left when we could have gone right. And not everything that we wrote in this contract is going to come up. Um, but there's things written in this contract, and they're there for a reason. They're designed for a reason. We wanted to learn certain things in this journey. And if you think about your life and your journey, it seems like there may be certain patterns that repeat,
Mm.
right? That we're trying to learn over and over again. And if we think of it from a counseling perspective. So let's shift out of the spiritual perspective and we think about it from a counseling perspective. And, we're in counseling and we're saying, I don't understand why I keep picking this same type of relationship, right? Like, we work with that in counseling, right? So
Mm.
stepping back into the spiritual realm, when we look at it from the spiritual realm.
Mhm.
You're picking that type of relationship, right? Because you wrote it into your contract and you're supposed to learn how to choose something different. So, same kind of concept, but from a different angle, right? A higher level. It's a higher level. And not to say counseling is not a high level, that's not what I mean, but it's a different strategy. It's just a different way of looking at it.
I have a
Uh,
quick adding in here. A
yeah,
reference,
absolutely.
I don't know where I heard this, but zoom in, zoom out. So zoom in is just that like I'm in this human, why is this happening? And zoom out brings us into that spiritual, bigger, beautiful picture. Love
Oh
it.
my God, that's beautiful. I love that. That's so beautiful because it's so true. I do want to, just because there may be questions around it, and I don't want to keep beating this to, this my particular story, but I want to go back because I did say exit plans and I want to explain what that means. Um, so we did write in exit plans, and I can explain this best by saying if in your life you have experienced something like a car accident that was a terrible car accident, but you walked away from it, you didn't even have a scratch. That was most likely where you had written in an exit, right? That you chose your higher level of consciousness chose that you didn't want to go at that time. Or if you had a near death experience, or if you had a heart attack that nobody knows how you survived, or something to that effect. Those are where we wrote in exits. The reason why exits are so important in the grief journey
Mm,
is because when we understand that those around us and us too had a plan in this, we tend to understand that grieving is different. As a human, yes, we
mm,
miss people, we grieve people. I do. I absolutely. I lost my best friend of 40 years. I grieved that loss, but I also honored her exit because she must have written it in for some reason. And the best way I can say that is when we come with a toolbox, right? We come with a toolbox. And when we choose to take one of our exits in that higher level of consciousness, subconscious place, when we're in one of those quick moments in the human realm, but like you've got all this time in the spiritual realm,
mhm,
we're sitting there going, do I stay? Do I go? Do I have enough in my toolbox?
mm,
And if you decide for whatever's coming up in the next year, two, five, oh God, I didn't pack enough in my toolbox.
mm,
I think I'm going to go ahead and go.
mm,
It's not a human decision. It's a
mm.
spiritual decision.
Not a rational, let me, do the pros and cons.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so when you begin to understand this higher level thinking, higher level spiritual thinking, you begin to grieve in a different way because you are able to honor that that person that you love or that person that you were connected with, that whatever was coming up for them, they didn't have enough to keep going through that. And their soul said, I need to go back and repack and come back and try again. And that's okay because we need to honor each other's souls much more than we do this fleshy body skin that we have. But, Stacy, I think you had a point too about exit plans, and I'm going to pass that to you and let you expand
Mm,
a little bit from that too.
right. So again, sticking with this like higher perspective. And I think what I'll say first is just to say with anything, whether we're talking about universal happenings, the plans, what's all this about at that expansive, from that expansive perspective, there's never just one, this is what it is. Like notice Terry's not saying this is why, this is the only reason. And so what I was thinking about is when we come in with contracts, we're also meshing and coming in with other souls. like when Terry said, we pick our parents. So there's soul contracts and then friends and other people. And the possibility that an exit point is chosen for a higher good in relation to the other souls too. And I'll give another example. This is not about me, but I've heard people say, and this one's a really rough one as far as loss and grief. When someone either in the womb, a baby dies, or any being, right? Any human that dies young, we just get so devastated. Like, that's wrong. They should live an entire lifetime. Of course, that's our humanness, and there's nothing wrong with wanting that. But again, like, it can be that that's exactly, like Terry said, it's exactly what the soul signed up for. Maybe yes, it wanted to go back and like redo or have another experience relative to the tools. And I imagine these could all coexist. Doesn't even mean one possibility. So I invite people, just even in this moment, just tune into how you're feeling about any of this. Because we're not trying to convince, there's no facts. There's belief, and then I think you can move into like just a knowingness. Because when you're in that spiritual, more higher, expansive, it's not even a place. It's just, I don't even know what words to use, consciousness, that it just feels like it hits right. Kind of like, yeah, just, yeah, without there being any sense making about it. But that there's many potential reasons for the exit points. And I'll hand it back over to you in case there's more about your story. Just beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, no, I just have to say that really there is so much power in just understanding this because, we've talked so much about self-worth, being our authentic selves, right? And self-love, all of these self concepts, right? And when we really look at soul contracts, um, the epitome of our journey is all about love. And part of that, right, that love is, and the majority, I would say the majority of it is self-love. Because with self-love, we teach others how to love us, and love radiates from us to others. Because we go back from, several episodes ago when we were talking about energy, right? When we are filled with self-love, that love energy that we have for us, we can't contain it. It just pours out into the world, into that energetic field. And so, really, you know, I, I didn't plan as I was started about soul contracts. This is what we're talking about, guys, when we say we don't plan where we're going. But I
Yes.
just literally was just hit with this don't stop until you complete the cycle, which is about ascension, right? And so I need to say this. So as we ascend, and I'm sorry, but we all ascend. That's just what I'm going to say. We all ascend. No matter who you are, no matter what has happened, everything is about love. As we ascend, we are filled with so much wisdom and so much love. You can't even begin to imagine what that feels like. And the more that we begin to complete our journey, the more that we are the embodiment of that in this human body, in this human experience. And if you ever notice, there are the concept of old souls, right? Like you'll hear lots of people talk about old souls. Well, if you've ever talked about an old soul, you are absolutely talking about people who are filled with that love, that self-love, and it's radiating off of them. That's what you've got. That's what you're experiencing is that self-love. And we come back to this journey excuse me, we come back to this journey over and over again until we complete it, like until we learn everything we need to learn. So when you have the concept of this old soul, when you have this concept of the old soul, right? They have been here enough times to be able to be filled with that self-love,
Mm,
and sometimes they start the journey this time that way,
mhm,
and it's just there. When we get to be so fortunate to be that far into the journey, um, man, it's just so beautiful. And those are the people that are just lighting up the world. And it's exciting to be around them. So as you journey in through this human experience, this particular journey, working on that piece of that self-love
mm,
and knowing your own self-worth is really the epitome of what we have to, is what we need to reach, um,
mhm,
is where we
mhm.
need to get to. And I'm going to turn it back over to you because I think I could go on forever. So,
Which is, it's so beautiful what you just brought together right there. From all that we've been talking about today, all that you've been sharing. And the concept of self-love and cultivating it and whatnot is often thrown out there in memes and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised, and it's certainly been part of my journey, if people are like, well, that all sounds great, but like, how? You know, and there's nothing wrong with asking questions like, how or what do I need to do to experience and create that for myself and bringing that into my life with people I love. And the how is actually embedded inherently in the expansion of who am I really? Because at the core, our soul, other words, people may equate it, although there could be different nuances and perceptions about what each of these might be differently as, but higher self, like anyone who tunes into intuition, like that knowing,
mhm,
you can tell because it goes beyond logic. Love knows there's nothing to figure out. It is what we are. And I'm adding this on, and you can see how this might fit for you, Terry, but like we already are all of it, but we forgot we're having this journey as really a higher consciousness, but we have forgotten. If we didn't forget, how would we have a human experience where we get to learn and grow and all of these
mhm,
things? So it's kind of like accessing what's already there. And then still, well, how do I do that? And some of what we even talked about in our last episode, and we'll add more in. But like I mentioned, something called heart coherence. But anything, if you love being in nature and you go do that, that is you. That is pure love, pure essence of you. Anything we don't have to effort to just being. If you love being around certain people, you love doing certain things. Because sometimes getting quiet is really challenging for people because I find more and more in the quietness, I really connect to all
mhm,
that I am. But when I'm ramped up and I'm like, you know, so that's why it's wonderful to have, like Terry mentioned, toolbox. Having a really, really powerful, helpful toolbox and not being, you know, cut off to adding more tools. Because when you do experience that loving essence of all that you are, and I love going to my heart because it's not just the physical heart, like it's energy. And some people call it the bridge to the divine or whatever. The terms don't matter. But what I invite in is as we speak, say some of these different things, how it feels to you. Like, do you feel drawn to it? Does your mind want to go, oh, that sounds weird or silly, or it's all okay? Because Terry said, we're not ready for all of it. We're ready for what we're ready for. But what's also interesting, and I noticed this in my experience, is that I have a higher wisdom part that kind of feels like it could be sort of considered to be like a human aspect, but then I know it must be connected to my soul. because ever since I began learning, and I learned it, and I won't go into detail, but I learned from someone I was working with years ago about like, there's other dimensions of reality. There's not just that we're just this human here to get things done. And I was like, whoa, tell me more. Well, what part of me wanted that? Right. So it's like something keeps calling me and drawing me. And then, my logical, I got to solve this problem in this human experience. But boy, I notice less struggle when you might hear the term surrender. You might like, what does that even mean? And we won't go deep into that now, but like, it's all about that love.
Mhm.
And we literally can learn, come to even at a deeper level of understanding that maybe the mind, because if the mind doesn't have a buy-in and it's just like, no, 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 hey, we're not ready for it, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But any of you who are following us and our podcast and what we're sharing, just it's a ride. It's a ride. And
Yeah.
what I love is when things get recorded, something that doesn't fit now, it's okay. We can file it away and come back. Sometimes I'm not ready, and I just love to follow like people that that inspire me about expanding my experience um on YouTube or wherever. And it's like if I'm not ready that day, there's no
Yeah.
should. There's no shoulds.
Yep. And I'm really a believer that it will come to us when we're ready. So if somebody begins to listen and they're like, no, swipe, whatever they do, right? It will come back to them when they're ready, and that's okay. It's
Yes.
okay. We really are just here to help people expand
Mhm.
and wherever they are. And if they want to listen, that's great. And if they want to expand, that's even greater, like,
Right, that
I'm
awareness that they
excited. Yeah,
yeah. Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
definitely.
Yes, yes,
So, another great conversation. I love our
yes.
conversations,
Oh,
and
it's just
just so those who are listening or watching, just so you understand, like, when we have these conversations, like, this helps us too. So I thank you for listening too,
yes,
because,
yes.
we can all get into those low vibrational places. And so when we are connecting and we're having these conversations, it helps keep us balanced too. And and I'm just so thankful. I'm just so thankful. And thanks for
Yes,
sharing the journey with us.
yes. Oh, power to everyone.
Yeah,
Sending just so much love. So much
absolutely.
love and well-being. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Bye for now.